Hi Year 12s, it's Miss Brooks. I'm hopefully going to have a short screencast. We'll see how we go. Talking you through an annotation of this article, which is Article 2 by David Donovan, and it's part of Set 1 from Week 7. So before we even get going, if you have not read this, pause the video, read it, make some annotations of your own so that you have highlighted things like alliteration, repetition, the title, for example, etc. So you need to be familiar with it before you watch this full video, because then you will be able to just jump around like I will and pick out the important parts. All right, on the set of slides for this week, which is called Year 12 Language Analysis, and if your teachers aren't using this exact set of slides, then I can make that available, so just let me know. But I've summed up the key points that you would include in one of these tables that we've been using. Okay, this is my class, but you've all got your own, so that's fine. Go ahead and use those. So the first thing that I noted from David Donovan's article is his contention. The establishment and those in power, so the establishment, is the group of people who are in charge, the government, the established people of the land, for example, in this case, those who are in power, have always been guilty of lying. We are not therefore living in a post-truth world, because it is naive to think that truth ever existed. That's Donovan's argument, and as you might guess from that brief statement of his contention, he's quite cynical and he's quite dismissive of this idea that there's a post-truth world, and dismissive of those people in power, and is quite cynical about the role they play in Australian politics and politics all over the world, really. His audience, now this is published in a online newspaper or journal, if you want to call it that, called Independent in Australia. And as you'll see, it's kind of basic, nothing too fancy here. And he's appealing, therefore, to readers who believe that they are living in a post-truth world, because he's trying to dismiss that claim, he's trying to unpack it, and also politically astute, which means sharp or clear readers. So clever readers. It's a bit late, sorry guys. All right, and I've chosen 3 arguments, and for the ease of breaking them up, they are broken up into sections of the text. So I'll chunk a few paragraphs together for argument 1, the same for argument 2, and the same for argument 3. So the first one, argument 1, is how he engages the reader. So he begins with those really short, sharp sentences in the opening, and I'll go into those in a moment. But his argument is that the concept of post-truth is a fantasy. In reality, Donovan argues that the established powers have and will continue to lie for their own gains. The only thing new in 2016 is that some of the powerful got caught in their efforts to put a finger on the scales of democracy. And what he means by that is to interfere with the democratic process in a way that is dishonest and against what we set out for when we established the idea of a democracy many, many moons ago in the ancient Greek times. And if you're thinking about that, you might think, oh, that relates to the cartoon, which I will need to pull up. Give me a second here. Let's have a look. That one, articles, post-truth. All right, it will relate to this here. So you've got Malcolm Turnbull in the Greek kind of toga, playing a violin as democracy goes up in flames. So you can draw a link there to that one. Here, the second argument, the election of President Donald Trump was not the nail in the coffin of truth. Instead, Donovan suggests that lies were acceptable if the right people told them and didn't get caught. Trump's position will likely see his lies quickly forgotten. So he has become part of the powerful, part of the establishment. So his lies will be acceptable. So maybe this should be, was not the final nail in the coffin of truth. Final argument, Donovan argues that not only have the media been complacent in this lying through their failure to, they have failed, goodness me, they have failed to perform their duty as critical investigators. So he's saying they're not doing a good enough job to uncover these lies that have been commonplace. There is no such thing as post-truth. It doesn't exist. They've always been lying. It's not new. And he's saying that that's why his news media organisation exists, Independent Australia. It's not the mainstream media. He's suggesting instead that the mainstream media are not performing their duties. And he's telling readers to turn to his paper or his online news site for the right answers. So let's have a quick look at the actual article. Now, there's lots of things in here. I don't think I'll talk about everything, but I'll go through kind of the gist of it. So we're thinking here, we're looking at argument 1, and we are focusing on this section all the way down to over the page, actually, all the way down to here. This is where I've got the beginning of argument 2. And then down here we slip into argument 3 when he says that it was the media's role. So whilst that seems like a brief point for argument 2, you can pick out bits from other spots, but just work with me here. All right, so first you've got lies, lies, more lies. So we've got repetition in the title to emphasize the kind of incessant nature. They've always existed, they always will exist, it's not new. Post-truth, lies. But then he says, some say we now live in a post-truth world. It's rubbish, of course. So this is kind of abrupt and dismissive, the tone that he uses here. It presumes the truth ever ruled. And he's trying to unpack this idea and subvert it and suggest that, no, there was never a time when the truth ruled. We were, in fact, always in a world where lies were the common currency if you were in part of the establishment and if you were powerful. He is trying to allay the concerns of people like Williams, who writes Article 1 and who's concerned that we have entered this post-truth world. He's trying to suggest to them that, no, it's not new, calm down, we're all getting a bit excited over nothing. This is how it's always been. He's not saying it's a good thing, but he's saying it's not a new thing. Okay, you also could note when I've talked about the tone there being abrupt, they're also short sentences. He relies on that a lot throughout. Short, simple, sharp sentences. He's cutting through the rubbish, the murky political water, and just getting straight to the point of what he's trying to say and to kind of point out the lies that exist in the media. All right, and this is again true of this sentence here. This is silly. It's kind of a patronizing tone, you might say, as he attacks proponents or people that support the idea of post-truth, or maybe he just tries to humorously undermine their suggestions to say that, no, it's just really lies have always existed and will continue to exist. You might have a look and go through and highlight how many times the word lies and what context it's mentioned. Probably 10 times, I would suggest, in this article, if not more. So have a look at that, and you might want to talk about that, the repetition of the word lies to embed it in the reader's mind, and to kind of consolidate the point he's trying to make. All right, in this paragraph, we've got the ordinary everyday people, and they are polarized against, we're presented with two polar opposites, the ordinary everyday people and the rich, well-connected people. It's become an us versus them. And I would suggest he's trying to appeal to the ordinary everyday people who are innocent of these lies and mistruths. We've also got they are losing. So again, he's distancing himself and us and placing blame on this other group, the well-connected, rich, powerful. All right, and then he switches to this short sentence here and he says, let me explain. And he's saying, trust me, I will put it in a way that you can understand, so that you can comprehend this idea that post-truth does not actually exist and we are, in fact, just in a dishonest world. One thing I want to touch on, which I haven't done and I should have, is this idea of truth here, the dictionary definition image being juxtaposed against the heading, the lies, lies, more lies, and post-truth lies. The fact that post-truth itself is a lie. So the juxtaposition of those two ideas, sharp contrast there, to kind of highlight the debate that he's going to talk about. And then he says it's true that Donald Trump told an enormous number of lies. during the election campaign. So many indeed that it was almost impossible for fact checkers to keep up with his breathtaking audacity. This word audacity is also used by Williams, and he uses it in an alliteration. I can't remember exactly what the other word is, but you can have a look at that. So there's a link there in terms of them employing the same vocabulary in a way to describe Trump's actions, because he says with breathtaking audacity, and Williams said, I took a sharp intake of breath. So they share the same physical response, shock to this, the behavior of this man that is the new president of the United States. They did, though, and the respected, venerable, established bastions. So we've got respected, venerable, established. That's a triplet. So 3 ideas. So he's trying to emphasize the power and the respect that these 3 or these newspapers garner as leaders in the American journalistic world. So you've got the Washington Post, New York Times, MNBC, CNN. And you will recall from the videos, if you've watched the Media Watch video or maybe even the John Oliver ones, you saw that Trump was attacking these groups and he was calling them fake news and things like that. And in some cases, they've been banned from his press conference. So he's trying to set up the idea that these 4 should be respected and powerful groups. However, the way that they treated Trump like a circus freak, and you can compare that to the way that Williams calls him a member of the loony right or stark raving mad. That is 2 phrases that Williams uses that to describe Trump that is the same here. And he's saying that, oh, well done to MSNBC, etc., these groups, because they gave Trump an immense amount of free publicity as well as turning him into a martyr. And a martyr is, to give you the dictionary definition so that you are not left with any shade of doubt. It says a person who displays or exaggerates the discomfort or distress in order to obtain sympathy. So Trump gains the sympathy of people who agree with his position and who support his ideas about immigration, healthcare, business, gun laws, etc., business, all these kinds of things. So he's trying to gain the sympathy of these people, and he does so when the media treat Trump like an idiot and use the kind of language and imagery they did to talk about him in the media. So they didn't help Hillary or the opposition, the Democrats. They instead helped the Republicans by making Trump into a martyr. All right, and then we've got another problem was that in the Facebook world, the people who supported Trump didn't follow these highbrow publications. So almost they're above the fray. They're above your average Joe that's voting for Trump. And even if they were made aware of them, they didn't believe them. This is important, and it links again to Williams, how Williams says we are not dealing with rational individuals. We don't have a shared sense of what is true, a shared reality, and therefore we're dealing with irrational people. And he says, then Donovan goes on to say, especially they didn't have a leg to stand on, because what the Democrats had done was to help Clinton and to kind of discredit Bernie Sanders, who was their competition at one point. They had participated in some inappropriate media kind of manipulation, and they had been caught. That was found in an email. And Donovan describes that. He says that Trump then attempted to discredit the lying Hillary and the dirty media. Now, the fact that he includes these quotes, which are quite emotive language, suggests that he doesn't disagree necessarily with the way that Trump has portrayed her, and suggests maybe that she is these things. But then he says, and I think this is an important quote, a lie is best, of course, when backed up by even a sliver of truth. And it's quite a cynical tone to suggest how easily people can be misled when there is just the slightest of truth within the justification. All right, and then we've got the tragic irony. is that the establishment hadn't put a finger, if the establishment hadn't put a finger on the scales of democracy, so interfered with democracy, you could think about, again, this picture here, the history of democracy formed in the in Greece quite some time ago. That is when the ideas of what a democratic nation or a democratic republic would look like were formed, and the establishment have been interfering with that for a long time, suggests Donovan, as have these people who don't care that it's burning down as they kind of wander off. And these people are, if you do not know, I'm pretty sure this is Bill Shorten with blood on his hands. We've got Penny Wong, who's the deputy leader, and we've got Pauline Hanson. All right. And he said she would possibly have won because they participated in this tipping of the scales many times before and gotten away with it, but this time they got caught. And that's the crux of argument one, that they got caught doing it. And the people were appalled, not him, maybe not even his readers, but these other people who were somehow believed that the truth reigned free and that, you know, everybody was honest and life was just dandy. As they had long suspected, the game was rigged and no one could be believed. And so Trump was free to lie. And now here we are. It's like a little story that he has told when he says, "Let me explain." And this is the consequence that we've reached this point. And so he says, lying isn't new. Truth has always been a scarce commodity. A commodity is something that can be bought and sold. So truth comes at a price is what's being suggested. Perhaps it's just that lying has been brought out into the light, uncovered, also a good quote there, so that we can all now see how persuasive lies can be. But nothing has really changed. He keeps coming back to this idea. Perfidy has always been a potent weapon, particularly for the powerful. And you'll notice there that I've had that p. The alliteration of the P is an attempt to emphasize this point. And perfidy means to be deceitful and untrustworthy. And possibly I would suggest this particular language choice is appealing to an intellectual group of individuals who are engaged in these kind of issues and might know about it. It also makes it a little bit more memorable for the reader to have this alliteration down here. Then we've got a number of examples that Donovan draws on to prove his point that it isn't new. He's just further consolidating his argument with this evidence about who fossil fuel companies support, how cigarette companies work to undermine arguments. He then reaches back to use the very extreme example, and maybe you might argue that he's trying to draw some link between these two individuals, Hitler in rallies, and then the way that governments use propaganda in their push for war, etc. And finally, but he says, don't let me get started on organized religion. And so he might be suggesting here about how religions can fall back on the argument of freedom of speech to slander people that kind of disagree with their aligned way of thinking. Let me just turn over on my notes. All right, so again, these historical examples are set to bolster his argument. All right, and my sense is that he's a bit frustrated, the fact that that we haven't realized that it's nothing new and that it's simply a repetition of what has gone on before and what is a well-known kind of practice in the media. And the difference is that in the past, the establishment has been able to get away with their lies. Now they're getting exposed. Their credibility has declined. Now ordinary, everyday people can access their satisfying, self-confirming fantasies from any number of sources. You've got the alliteration of the S, and again, this links to Williams and his argument that these people are irrational and they just look for what they want in an argument and use that evidence in a way that supports them. And again, you could draw a contrast here. Pauline Hanson has gone to a coral reef at the I think it's maybe the Keppel Islands, and this is 1,000 kilometers away from where the actual coral problem is at, say, Port Douglas, where 60% of the coral has been bleached and is therefore in danger. And so she's selected some evidence to try and prove her argument that lies well outside the realm of truth. Apologies, guys. All right, and we've also got Turnbull here with this pros and cons list about why Brandis, who is the Attorney General, so kind of the chief lawyer for the government, deserves to keep his job. Clearly, the cons are overwhelming and they outweigh the pros. However, we've got him saying that he deserves to keep his job, and looks like the pros have it. And he says here, they look for satisfying self-confirming fantasies from any number of sources so that they can continue their line of thinking. So you can draw a direct link there to that cartoon. All right, and we've got Trump didn't end truth. Telling lies has always been acceptable if the right people told them and didn't get caught. Now Trump is in power, doubtless his lies will quickly be forgotten. So Donovan is suggesting quite cynically that Trump is going to get away with these alternate facts as such, like his press secretary said in the press conference just recently. He'll keep getting away with spouting these alternative facts because he is in a position of power, he is part of the establishment, and he will become a person that it's okay to lie. The right people. However, he's drawing contrast here and saying that in America, in Britain, in all the world, the powerful, so the establishment, political leaders, powerful businessmen, etc., have told lies and broken promises without compunction, which means without guilt or considering their morals. They just do it and they don't feel any emotions about that. He said in Australia, they still do it. So he's transitioning to make the connection back to Australia to show how all this, his framing argument about the situation with Trump and the history of lies in politics is relevant to Australia. This is all kind of a frame or a background for the point that he's trying to make here. And he talks about how Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce lies about the backpacker tax. Malcolm Turnbull, the Prime Minister, brazenly, an emotive term, lies about Immigration Minister Peter Dutton. Here, inclusive, we're talking about Australia, we, inclusive. This is the first time, I think, that he has used we in this piece. Before that, it was they, them. Now it's we. So we are part of the problem, and we see the connection to our own lives. It's bringing it back to Australia and our own experience and our need to act in our backyard. All right, and then we've got Malcolm Turnbull lying, and Bill Shorten was blamed for it there, but he's suggesting that it wasn't really him. The misrepresentation of remarks. And he's saying just how absurd the state of affairs in politics are and the lying is. But the problem here is, and this is where argument 3 begins, but Australia's established media just accepted it without comment. They are not doing their job. They have failed to act. And this is again repeated here. Did the media call her out on this absurdity? No, they're not acting out in a way that he sees as satisfying for a media organisation to question political leaders such as Pauline Hanson and bring them to account for the things that they say. And again, you can link this to both articles, but you can link it here to Pauline Hanson being called an ignoramus by these young children who are seemingly smarter than her in knowing the definition of Aboriginal. She is someone in a position of power. She should be answerable for the mistakes she makes and the decisions she makes and arguments. For example, you've got the anti-vaxxers decision this week, and there's just, I would suggest you want to have a read of a couple of articles about that. That's quite interesting, and it would help you develop a bit more of an understanding about this idea some more. All right, and so we've talked about the emotive language there. We've talked about a link to the cartoon and the Williams article, because Williams uses the same image of Pauline Hanson with the coral, but the actual photograph to make his point, and he discusses that specific example as well. And then we'll wrap it up at the end here, and we've got, because none of this stands up to any scrutiny, but still it was all said, and by and large the media reported it uncritically. So he is very scathing of the mainstream media, and maybe you could argue he's trying to further his own agenda and support for his own online newspaper, with his argument that the mainstream are not living up to their expectations. They are simply like the puppets of the rich and powerful, and they report only on what they're allowed to report on. If you wanted to look at that, you could talk about like Rupert Murdoch and the Australian election, for example, is something if you wanted to research that a bit more. Finally, we are not living in a post-truth world, but the truth, we are not living in a post-truth world, but the truth may be rarer than it has been for a long time. And in a time of universal deceit, truth tellers like the Independent Australia, so he's trying to pump up his own tires here and impress upon us the power of independent media, will be more important than ever. Thank you for supporting. So again, he ends on a call for support for his paper and their fight against liars. And his liars, he's encompassing not only the politicians but the media. All right, I'm going to leave it off there. I'm just going to take you back to these slides here, and I'll pause. Well, I'll end the video here, but you can pause it, of course, and write those down. But just to quick recap, if you weren't sure about where my arguments began and ended, let's have a look here. Right, so we've got this section. Most of this is relevant to argument 1, but argument 2 can begin here, but also it's relevant here when it says Trump did not end truth. He simply, benefited from the mistakes of his opposition, and also that he's in a position of power now, so it will be acceptable, the lies that he tells. And then my final argument begins with the first mention of the media. Here onwards. Okay? So I'll leave you to that. Good luck. Add to the table that you're doing with your class, and good luck writing. If you've got any questions or some of this doesn't make sense, let me know. Always like good feedback. Thanks.